Welcome to Creepytalks, where hidden fears come alive through chilling horror tales. Dare to listen as every story pulls you deeper into the darkness. Story 1, The Night the Pumps Started Screaming. At exactly 2:41 a.m., the automatic doors of Red Valley Gas and Mart slid open by themselves. No car had pulled in, no footsteps approached, no wind strong enough to trigger the sensors. Still, the doors open. Daniel Harper, the night clerk, looked up from the counter and felt his stomach tighten. He had worked graveyard shifts for almost 4 years. He knew every normal sound the station made: the hum of refrigerators, the click of cooling metal, the distant howl of desert wind. This sound was different. The doors didn't close. They stayed open, as if inviting something inside. "Great," Daniel muttered, grabbing his flashlight. "Broken sensor again." He stepped out from behind the counter and walked toward the entrance. The parking lot lay empty beneath flickering lights. Highway 18 stretched into darkness, silent and dead. Daniel waved his hand in front of the sensor. Nothing. The doors slowly slid shut. The moment they sealed, every pump outside activated at once. The digital displays lit up. Numbers began rolling rapidly. Gallons, prices, totals, but no hoses were lifted. "Nope," Daniel whispered. "Absolutely not." He rushed back behind the counter and pulled up the security cameras. All 6 pumps showed the same thing: hoses hanging, no vehicles, no people. Yet the meters kept running. Then on camera 4, something moved. A shape stood just beyond the reach of the light. Tall, too thin, its limbs bent at wrong angles, like they weren't meant to support a human body. Daniel leaned closer to the screen. The figure stepped forward. The light hit its face. Daniel stumbled back, knocking over a rack of candy bars. The face wasn't blurred, wasn't shadowed. It was burned, charred black, skin cracked and peeling. The mouth hung open in a silent scream. Teeth melted together. Its eyes gone. Just hollow sockets leaking something dark. The figure raised one arm and pointed directly at the camera. At Daniel. The screen went black. Every monitor shut off at once. The pumps outside stopped. The station fell silent. Daniel stood frozen, heart slamming against his ribs. His first instinct was to call the police, but before he could reach his phone, the radio behind the counter turned on by itself. Static hissed. Then a voice came through, low, broken, whispering, "Daniel, why didn't you help us?" Daniel's blood ran cold. No one here knew his name. "Who is this?" he said, voice shaking. The radio crackled louder. "You heard us screaming," the voice continued. "Every night. You always hear us." Daniel backed away slowly. "That's not possible," he whispered. "I work alone." The lights flickered. The smell hit him next. Burnt rubber, gasoline, and something far worse. Something like cooked meat. The radio volume spiked suddenly, erupting into screams. Not one voice. Dozens, men, women, children, all screaming at once. Daniel dropped to his knees, clutching his ears. "Make it stop!" he shouted. Instantly, silence returned. A soft click echoed behind him. Daniel turned. The back office door was open. It hadn't been before. The darkness inside felt thick, heavy, like it was pressing outward, breathing. "Hello?" Daniel called. Something shifted inside the office. Footsteps, slow, wet. A shape emerged from the shadows. It was a woman. At least, it had once been. Her hair was melted into clumps against her scalp. Her clothes were fused to her skin. One arm hung useless, bones visible through torn flesh. She smiled. "We waited so long," she said. Daniel scrambled backward. "Get out! I'm calling the police!" She tilted her head. You didn't call them for us. The station lights exploded, plunging everything into darkness. Emergency lights flickered on seconds later, bathing the store in red. The woman was gone, but something else stood near the pumps outside. Not one figure. Many. Burned silhouettes pressed against the glass windows, hands slamming silently, mouths opening and closing in agony. Daniel screamed and ran for the exit. The doors wouldn't open. He slammed his shoulder into them again and again. Outside, the figures began pounding harder. The glass cracked. Daniel collapsed to the floor, sobbing. "I'm sorry," he cried. "I didn't know. I didn't know." The radio turned on again. This time the voice was calm. "It happened 5 years ago," it said. "A fuel leak, one spark. You were working that night too." Daniel froze. Memory flooded back. Fire, explosions, screaming customers trapped outside, pumps malfunctioning, his manager ordering him to shut the doors. He had survived. They hadn't. The figures outside pressed closer. The pumps began to scream. Metal shrieked. Fuel sprayed. The smell of gasoline filled the air. The woman's voice whispered from everywhere at once. "You stayed silent then." The emergency lights died. Total darkness. Daniel's scream was the last sound heard before Red Valley Gas and Mart burned to the ground. Story 2. The ones who burned never left. The fire at Red Valley Gas and Mart was officially ruled an accident. Electrical malfunction, fuel leak, old wiring. That's what the report said. But fires don't leave footprints. 2 days after the explosion, Sheriff Lucas Harlan stood behind the yellow tape, staring at the blackened remains of the station. The smell of smoke still clung to the air, mixed with gasoline that soaked deep into the ground. Daniel Harper's body had never been found, which made no sense. The security footage had shown him inside moments before the blast. There was no way he could have escaped the fireball, and yet, nothing. No bones, no remains, no ash, just an empty space behind the counter. "Burns hot enough," one of the firefighters muttered. "Sometimes there's nothing left." Lucas didn't answer. He'd been the first responder 5 years ago, too. Same station, same smell, same screams. Back then, 11 people died when a fuel pump malfunctioned and ignited. Families trapped outside, a couple inside the store, a teenage girl screaming for her mother while flames swallowed the pumps, and Daniel Harper. Daniel had locked the doors. Lucas remembered pounding in the glass, yelling at him to open up. Daniel hadn't moved. Now the station was gone again. Lucas turned to Evelyn Brooks, the county fire investigator. "You hear that?" she asked quietly. Lucas frowned. "Hear what?" She looked pale. "The humming." Lucas listened. At first nothing, then, barely audible, a low mechanical hum, like fuel pumps running. But there were no pumps anymore. That night, Lucas couldn't sleep. At 2:41 a.m., his radio turned on by itself. Static. Then screaming. He shot up in bed, heart racing. The screams weren't coming from the radio. They were coming from outside. Lucas grabbed his gun and stepped onto his porch. The road was empty, but the air shimmered with heat, like something burning just beneath the surface of reality. Shapes flickered in the darkness, charred silhouettes standing where the gas station used to be. One of them stepped forward. Lucas recognized the melted face instantly. It was Martha Klein. She died 5 years ago, trapped near Pump 3. "Martha," Lucas whispered. Her jaw cracked open unnaturally. "He left us," she said. The ground beneath Lucas's feet grew warm. Fuel bubbled up through the dirt, pooling around his boots. Lucas ran. The next morning he reopened the old case. The reports were wrong. Daniel Harper hadn't just survived. He had chosen to survive. Lucas found the original emergency call recording, the one that never made it into evidence. Daniel's voice shook through the speakers. "They're outside. There's fire everywhere. I can't. My manager said, don't open the doors. The pumps." A woman screamed in the background. "Please, my baby's out there." Then silence. Lucas slammed the file shut. At exactly 2:41 a.m. the next night, the ground at Red Valley cracked open. The pumps rose, not physically, but imprinted, glowing outlines of metal and hoses made of fire and smoke. The station rebuilt itself in flickering flames, and inside it, Daniel Harper stood behind the counter. Burned, but alive. His skin peeled and regenerated in endless loops. His eyes were hollow pits of fire. He screamed, but no sound came out. Outside, the dead gathered. 11 burned souls surrounded the station, trapped in the moment of their death, reliving it every night. Daniel finally understood. This was his punishment, not death. Duty. Every night the station reappeared. Every night the pumps screamed. And every night Daniel was forced to face the ones he abandoned. The doors opened. A car pulled in. A young couple stepped out, laughing. Daniel tried to warn them, but his mouth only produced static. The cycle began again, and far away in his bed, Sheriff Lucas Harlan heard the pump start screaming. Story 3, The Last Customer. At 2:40 a.m., Sheriff Lucas Harlan stood alone on the empty stretch of Highway 18. The air was wrong, too hot, too still. The smell of gasoline burned his throat even though the wind wasn't blowing. Where Red Valley Gas and Mart once stood, the ground shimmered like a mirage. Lucas checked his watch. 2:41 a.m. The humming began. It came from beneath the earth, deep, mechanical, angry. The ground cracked open with a sound like tearing metal, and glowing outlines of fuel pumps clawed their way into existence. Fire traced the shape of the station, rebuilding it from memory, flame, and guilt. Red Valley was back. Lucas stepped forward, gun drawn, knowing it was useless. Inside the station, Daniel Harper stood behind the counter. His face was burned beyond recognition, skin endlessly blistering and healing. His eyes burned like dying coals. He looked up when Lucas entered. Daniel tried to speak. Only static came out. "You remember me," Lucas said quietly. "You locked the doors." Daniel's head jerked violently, like something had grabbed him from behind. Outside, the dead were already gathering. 11 figures emerged from the darkness, charred, screaming, trapped forever in the moment fire took them. A mother clutching an invisible child, a man dragging melted legs across the concrete, a teenage girl with no eyes, her mouth stretched in endless agony. They surrounded the pumps. They don't want revenge, Lucas realized. They want a replacement. Daniel shook his head frantically. The radio behind the counter turned on. This time every voice spoke at once. "The station must be manned." Lucas backed away. "No, that's not how this ends." He raised his gun and fired at the pumps. The bullets passed through flame and memory. The doors locked. Daniel screamed silently, falling to his knees. The burned woman, Martha, stepped inside. Her footsteps left scorched prints that never faded. "You stayed alive," she said to Daniel. "Now someone else must stay." Lucas felt hands grab his arms. The dead were inside now. "No!" Lucas shouted. "Take him! He belongs here!" Martha turned slowly. "He already belongs," she said. "The station needs someone new." The lights went out. In the darkness, Lucas felt fire crawl across his skin, but it didn't burn. It marked. When the lights returned, Daniel was gone. The station was clean, quiet, normal. Lucas stood behind the counter, alive, unburned. The doors opened, a car pulled in. A tired man stepped inside and smiled. "Rough night, huh?" Lucas opened his mouth to scream. Instead, he said calmly, "Welcome. How can I help you?" Outside, the pumps began to hum, and beneath the counter, Daniel Harper screamed forever, buried under the ground, feeding the fire that would never die. At exactly 2:41 a.m., Red Valley Gas and Mart opened for business, and it will never close again.